There have been moments in Earth's history when the world did not just change, it broke. The sky turned dark, the oceans became deadly, the climate collapsed, entire species disappeared, civilizations fell apart, and for the creatures living through it, it probably felt like the end of everything. But here's the strange part. Every time the world ended, something survived. A tiny organism beneath the ice, a small animal hiding underground, a group of humans moving through a dangerous landscape, a civilization rebuilding from ruins. Earth has been frozen, burned, poisoned, hit by space rocks, shaken by volcanoes, and transformed by disease. And somehow, life kept going. But it never returned to the way it was before. Because when the world restarts, it does not simply go back to normal. It becomes something new. This is the story of the times the world ended and had to begin again. Before humans, before dinosaurs, before forests covered the land, Earth went through one of the strangest periods in its history. There may have been a time when our planet looked almost completely white from space. Not blue, not green, white. A frozen world. Scientists call this idea Snowball Earth. Hundreds of millions of years ago, ice may have spread across huge parts of the planet. Oceans could have been covered in thick ice, continents disappeared beneath glaciers. The world became silent, frozen, and almost unrecognizable. If you could stand on Earth back then, you would not see cities, animals, trees, or birds. You would see ice stretching toward the horizon. And life? Life was barely hanging on. Most life at the time was microscopic. Tiny organisms may have survived in pockets of liquid water, near volcanic heat, under thin ice, or in places where sunlight could still reach the ocean. Earth had not died, but it had come dangerously close to becoming a locked, frozen planet. And then slowly, the rescue came from below. Volcanoes. Even while the surface froze, volcanoes kept releasing carbon dioxide into the atmosphere. Over time, greenhouse gases built up. The planet began to warm, the ice started to melt, and Earth woke up. Rivers returned, oceans opened, the climate shifted. Life had another chance. And what came after may have changed everything. Because after these frozen chapters, life eventually became more complex. The planet that emerged from ice was not the same planet that had frozen. It was as if Earth had been trapped in a long winter, waiting for the next world to begin. If Snowball Earth was the world freezing, this was the world turning against life itself. Around 252 million years ago, Earth experienced the most devastating mass extinction we know of. It is called the Great Dying, and it nearly lived up to its name. This was not just the disappearance of a few animals. This was a collapse of life on a scale that is almost impossible to imagine. Around 90% of species vanished. In the oceans, the destruction was even worse. Most marine species disappeared. Coral reefs collapsed. Sea creatures that had existed for millions of years were gone. And the course was not just one dramatic explosion. It was slower, more terrifying. A disaster that unfolded over time. In what is now Siberia, massive volcanic eruptions released enormous amounts of gas into the atmosphere. The climate warmed, oceans heated up, oxygen levels dropped, the seas became more acidic. The ocean, which had once been full of life, became harder and harder to survive in. Imagine being a creature in that world. The water around you is warming, there is less oxygen to breathe, food sources are disappearing, the ecosystem you depend on is collapsing piece by piece. On land, things were not much better. Forests died, habitats disappeared, food chains broke apart. Earth became a planet of survivors, and for millions of years afterward, life struggled to recover. But it did recover. A few species made it through. Small, tough, adaptable creatures survived the heat, hunger, and chaos. And from those survivors, a new world slowly formed. Eventually, new ecosystems appeared, new animals evolved, and much later, the dinosaurs rose. This is what makes this chapter so incredible. The dinosaurs did not rise from a peaceful world. They rose from the ashes of one of the worst extinctions Earth has ever seen. For more than 150 million years, dinosaurs ruled the planet. They were everywhere. Massive long-necked giants moved across the lands. Predators like T-Rex hunted through forests. Flying reptiles crossed the skies. Marine reptiles ruled the oceans. If you had visited Earth 66 million years ago, it would have looked like something out of a Jurassic Park movie. Then, one day, everything changed. A rock from space, roughly the size of a city, slammed into Earth near what is now Mexico's Yucatan Peninsula. The impact was so powerful it carved a massive crater into the planet. But the impact itself was only the beginning. The collision triggered earthquakes, wildfires, tsunamis, and a huge cloud of dust and debris that rose into the atmosphere. Then the sky darkened. Sunlight struggled to reach the surface, plants began to die, and when plants died, the animals that ate them started to disappear. Then the predators followed. The food chain collapsed from the bottom up. The dinosaurs had to survive for millions and millions of years, but they could not survive a world without enough sunlight, food, or stability. And in the blink of an eye, dinosaurs disappeared forever. But not everything died. Some creatures survived. Small mammals, birds, reptiles, insects, life forms that could hide, eat different foods, reproduce quickly, or survive in harsh conditions. And that is where the story takes a strange turn. For the dinosaurs, the asteroid was the end, but for mammals, it was just the beginning. Before the impact, mammals mostly lived in the shadows of dinosaurs. They were small, cautious, and limited. After the dinosaurs disappeared, the world had empty space, new opportunities, new environments, new paths for evolution, and eventually, millions of years later, that path led to humans. So the asteroid did not just end one world, but it also made room for another. It is easy to imagine extinction as something that happens to ancient creatures, but humans also lived through dangerous chapters. Long before cities, farming, writing, or electricity, our ancestors were small groups trying to survive in a world that could change without warning. There were no hospitals, no weather forecasts, no food supply chains, just people, walking through landscapes filled with predators, changing climates, and uncertainty. One of the most famous events connected to this period is the eruption of the Toba supervolcano around 74,000 years ago. The eruption was enormous. It sent ash and gases into the atmosphere and may have affected climates in different parts of the world. Some older theories suggested it may have nearly wiped out humans. Today, scientists debate how extreme the impact really was. But whether Toba nearly ended humanity or not, it reveals something important. Human survival was never guaranteed. Our ancestors were vulnerable. A failed season could mean hunger. A changing climate could force migration. A volcanic eruption could darken skies and damage ecosystems. A disease or conflict could devastate a small group. There was time when humans were not the dominant species on Earth. We were just another fragile branch on the tree of life. And yet, somehow, that branch did not break. People adapted. They moved. They learned new landscapes. They made tools. They shared knowledge. They survived long enough for the next generation to continue. Every person alive today exists because someone, somewhere, made it through a world that was trying to stop them. We are not just descended from humans. We are descended from survivors. Sometimes the world does not end for the whole planet. Sometimes it ends for the people living inside a civilization. A city falls, a trade route disappears, a government collapses, a language fades, a way of life that seemed permanent is suddenly gone. One of the most mysterious examples is the Bronze Age collapse. Around 1200 BCE, several powerful societies across the eastern Mediterranean and Near East were disrupted or destroyed. These were not small villages. These were kingdoms and empires connected by trade, diplomacy, writing, armies, and wealth. To the people living there, their world may have seemed advanced and stable. Ships moved good across the sea. Palaces controlled resources. Scribes recorded history, rulers made alliances, cities depended on networks that stretched across regions. And then those networks started to break. Trade slowed or collapsed, cities were destroyed or abandoned, powerful states weakened, people migrated, violence spread throughout the region. Historians still debate exactly what caused it. Climate stress, drought, famine, invasions, rebellions, earthquakes, economic breakdown. It may not have been one cause. It may have been many pressures hitting at once. And that is what makes it feel so familiar. Because civilizations are not just destroyed by one dramatic event. Sometimes they collapse when too many systems fail together. Food, trade, trust, leadership, security, and resources. For the people living through it, this was not history. It was their home falling apart. But even then, humanity continued. The old world collapsed, but new societies rose from the ruins. New kingdoms formed. New cultures developed. New stories were written. The Bronze Age did not end humanity, but it ended an entire version of the world. Then came an ending that did not fall from the sky or erupt from the ground. It moved quietly, from person to person, town to town, and port to port. In the 1300s, the Black Death spread across Europe, parts of Asia, North Africa, and the Middle East. It killed tens of millions of people. In some places, the losses were so severe that entire communities were transformed. Imagine living in a small town and watching the world empty around you. Neighbors disappear, markets close, church bells ring again and again, families losing children, parents, workers, and friends. People did not understand the germs the way we do today. They did not know exactly why this was happening. They only knew that the death was moving through their world faster than anyone could stop it. For many people, it must have felt like the end times. But when the plague finally passed, the world that remained was different. There were fewer workers, so labor became more valuable. Old social systems were challenged. Some peasants and workers had more bargaining power than before. Religious authority was questioned. Economic life changed. The Black Death was a tragedy on an enormous scale, but it also reshaped the society that came after it. Again, the pattern repeated. A world ended, another began. When we say the world ended, we usually imagine one final moment. A giant explosion, a burning sky, a planet destroyed. But most endings are not that simple. Sometimes the world ends in ice, sometimes it ends in heat. Sometimes it ends with a rock from space, sometimes with a disease too small to see, sometimes with trade routes breaking, crops failing, governments weakening, and people realizing that the system around them is not as permanent as they thought. The world does not have to disappear for life to become unrecognizable. And that may be the most unsettling part, because every age thinks it is normal. Every civilization thinks its systems will last. Every generation grows up believing the world around them is solid. But Earth's history tells a different story. The planet changes, life adapts, power shifts, species disappear, new ones rise, civilizations fall. New worlds are built from the ruins of old ones, and somehow, after every ending, something remains. A survivor, a seed, a species, a memory, a story. So maybe the most important question is not whether the world has ended before, because it has, many times. The real question is, when the world changes again, what will survive, and what kind of world will come next? If you enjoyed this video, subscribe to Curious Out Loud, because every place, every event, and every corner of the world has a story worth exploring. I'll see you in the next one.